Meera Patel was a devoted wife and mother, and Jason Miller was the charming boy next door. But behind their innocent smiles lay a secret affair that would end in a brutal murder and shatter two families forever. In 2018, Meera Patel left behind the bustling streets of Mumbai for the quiet suburbs of Los Angeles. Her husband, Raj, had been offered a lucrative job at a growing tech firm, and it seemed like the perfect opportunity for the family to build a better future. Meera, 36 at the time, had always supported her husband's ambitions. They had been married for over a decade, a traditional arranged marriage that slowly grew into companionship. They had a daughter, Anya, who was just 8 when they made the move. The promise of a new life in America felt like a dream, but once they arrived, Meera realized how quickly dreams could turn into isolation. Their home was nestled in a calm, tree-lined neighborhood in the outskirts of the city. It was peaceful, a stark contrast to the noise and chaos of Mumbai. At first, Meera appreciated the silence, the clean air, the wide sidewalks. But as weeks passed, the silence began to feel suffocating. Raj's new job demanded long hours, often stretching late into the evening. Anya was adjusting well to school, making friends and quickly adapting to the American lifestyle. Meera, however, felt like a stranger in a foreign world. She had no family nearby, and the few Indian families she met at community gatherings were friendly but distant. Most of her days were spent alone, maintaining the house, preparing meals, and scrolling through social media, watching life go on without her back home in India. She had once dreamed of being a writer, penning short stories and poems in college, but those dreams had slowly faded under the weight of responsibilities. In LA, those forgotten desires began to stir again, but she didn't know where to begin. It was during one of her evening walks with their dog, Simba, that Meera first noticed Jason Miller. He lived next door with his parents and had recently returned home from college for the summer. Jason was tall, athletic, and always seemed relaxed. He would smile and wave, sometimes pausing to pet Simba or comment on the weather. Meera appreciated the brief interactions. They broke up the monotony of her day. Over time, the exchanges grew longer. Jason would ask about India, about her adjustment to the States, about her favorite books. He listened with an attentiveness Meera hadn't experienced in years. Their conversations began to take place more frequently, at the mailbox, near the garden, even by chance at the grocery store. Jason often jogged in the neighborhood, and Meera started timing her walks to coincide with his route. She told herself it was innocent, just someone to talk to. But beneath that reasoning was something deeper, an emotional need being quietly fulfilled. Jason was young, full of energy, and he made Meera feel seen. It was something she hadn't realized she was missing. While Raj remained buried in his work and their daughter drifted further into her own world, Meera found herself pulled toward the attention and validation Jason gave her. What started as neighborly warmth soon began to blur into something far more dangerous. As the summer sun grew hotter, so did the intensity of Meera and Jason's secret relationship. What had started as friendly conversation turned into lingering glances, private smiles, and carefully chosen moments away from the public eye. Jason, at 21, was young and impulsive, still riding the high of college freedom. Meera, nearly twice his age, knew the risks, yet found herself unable to resist the feelings stirring within her. There was a thrill she hadn't felt in years, a sense of being wanted, admired, and desired. They began exchanging text messages late at night, when the rest of the world was quiet. It started innocently enough, a funny meme, a comment about a book or film, a short message about how nice it had been to see each other earlier that day. But soon the messages turned more personal. Jason told Meera how beautiful he found her, how different she was from the girls his age. Meera, flattered and hesitant, responded with cautious appreciation. It didn't take long for the text to become flirtatious and suggestive. She knew it was wrong, yet the connection felt intoxicating. Eventually, the line was crossed. One afternoon, while Raj was working from his office upstairs and Anya was at a friend's birthday party, Jason came over under the pretense of borrowing a book. Meera let him in, heart pounding. That day marked the beginning of their physical relationship. Afterward, both felt the weight of what they had done, but instead of guilt driving them apart, it pulled them closer. Each stolen moment became more daring than the last. They arranged secret meetings whenever they could. When Jason's parents were away, or when Raj was stuck at work late, they would spend time together in each other's homes, always watching the clock, always alert. Their chemistry was undeniable, but so was the danger. They lived just a few yards apart. One wrong move, one suspicious glance from a neighbor, and everything could fall apart. Jason, for his part, was falling in deeper than Meera had anticipated. He talked about how special she was, how he'd never met someone who understood him the way she did. He didn't see her as a married woman or a mother. He saw her as someone who had changed his life. Meera, though touched by his words, felt the weight of reality pressing down on her. She still loved her daughter and respected her husband, even if their relationship had grown distant. She began to wonder how long this could go on before something went terribly wrong. As weeks passed, things became more complicated. Jason started showing signs of jealousy. If Meera couldn't reply to his texts right away, he would flood her phone with messages, asking if she was avoiding him. He began appearing unexpectedly at her front door or near her backyard, even when she hadn't asked him to come. Neighbors started noticing. One of them, an older woman who often walked her dog in the evening, made a passing comment to Meera about seeing that college boy around quite a bit. Though the affair still burned with passion, a dark undertone began to creep in, one of obsession, unpredictability, and looming consequences. Meera started to sense that what once gave her life new energy might soon become the very thing that destroyed it. By the start of 2019, the affair between Meera and Jason had reached a turning point. What once felt like an escape had begun to feel like a trap. Jason, once light-hearted and carefree, had grown increasingly possessive. He demanded Meera's time, attention, and loyalty. When she wasn't available, he grew irritated, sending long emotional texts or waiting outside her home for hours. Meera tried to manage his expectations, but the balance was slipping. She realized too late that Jason's feelings had grown into an obsession. Meera began to withdraw. Her fear of being discovered was growing with each passing day. She started ignoring Jason's texts, declining his calls, and avoiding places where they might run into each other. She hoped he would take the hint and move on. Instead, he became more persistent. He showed up at her house unannounced, sometimes late at night, knocking softly on the back door. He left gifts on her porch, books, flowers, even handwritten letters. One note said, "You said you cared about me. Don't shut me out now." It was no longer a secret romance. It was a threat looming over every moment of her life. Around this time, Jason's behavior started to raise alarms beyond Meera. His parents noticed changes. He seemed distant, irritable, and distracted. At one point, his mother confronted him about his late nights and unexplained absences, but he brushed it off. Still, neighbors had started whispering. People saw him visiting Meera's house when Raj wasn't home. The once friendly nods Meera received from her neighbors had turned into wary glances. She could feel their suspicion growing. The pressure became unbearable. Meera couldn't eat or sleep properly. Her relationship with Raj, already strained, grew colder. Raj noticed her detachment, but attributed it to homesickness or seasonal depression. He encouraged her to take a short trip back to India to visit family, hoping it would help. Meera considered it, but feared what Jason might do in her absence. The breaking point came when Raj received an anonymous email. It was short and cryptic, stating, "Your wife is not who you think she is. Ask her about the neighbor's son." No name, no details, just a cruel hint of betrayal. Raj, stunned, confronted Meera. She denied everything, blaming it on a prank or a mistake. He didn't push further, but the doubt had been planted. Soon after, Meera found a red scarf in their backyard. It was the same one she had once given to Jason, a personal memento from the early days of their affair. Seeing it again, left like a message, made her panic. She realized Jason wasn't just clinging to the past. He was trying to manipulate her with it. She didn't know what he was capable of anymore. Meera started locking all the doors, closing the blinds, and checking over her shoulder constantly. She was trapped between two lives, one she had built with her family and one she had ruined with a single mistake. and deep down she feared that Jason wasn't going to let her walk away from either. On the night of April 17th, 2019, everything unraveled. It was a quiet Wednesday, the kind of evening where the neighborhood usually settled into a peaceful routine. Children had gone to bed, porch lights flickered on, and the streets were silent. But inside the Patel residence, tension had been building for days. Meera had spent the whole afternoon in a state of unease. Jason had been texting non-stop, demanding to see her, accusing her of abandoning him. His messages had become darker, threatening. To expose everything, even mentioning Anya by name, Meera didn't know if he meant harm, but the possibility terrified her. At around 9:00 p.m., Raj was in his upstairs office finishing up a late work call. Anya was asleep in her room, unaware of the chaos that was about to unfold. Meera was alone. In the living room when Jason arrived, there was no forced entry. The front door was unlocked, or perhaps she had opened it for him. Investigators were never sure. What they knew was that within minutes, something went horribly wrong. Neighbors reported hearing a loud thud, followed by what sounded like shouting and glass shattering. A few minutes later, a scream pierced the night. One of the neighbors, concerned and frightened, called the police. When officers arrived, they found the front door slightly open and the living room in disarray. A table had been overturned, a lamp shattered on the floor, and in the center of the chaos lay Jason's lifeless body. He had been stabbed multiple times with a kitchen knife. The weapon was found beside him, smeared with blood. Meera was on the floor a few feet away, semi-conscious and bleeding from cuts on her hands. Her dress was soaked with blood, both hers and Jason's. Paramedics arrived within minutes and rushed her to the hospital while police secured the scene. At first, it appeared to be a case of self-defense. Meera claimed that Jason had broken into the house and attacked her. She said she fought back in panic, not intending to kill him, but detectives quickly began to question her story. There were no signs of forced entry, no broken locks or windows. Jason's phone showed several messages from Meera earlier that day, including one inviting him to come over to talk things through. Further examination of the crime scene added to the doubt. The blood spatter patterns suggested a struggle, but not a one-sided attack. Some evidence indicated Jason may have tried to leave the room, only to be pulled back or blocked. The number of stab wounds, more than a dozen, pointed to rage, not panic. Detectives also found a hidden folder on Meera's phone, filled with deleted messages, photos, and voice notes from her relationship with Jason. It painted a far more complicated picture than she had admitted. There was clear emotional entanglement, along with escalating tension in the weeks before the murder. Meera was arrested 2 days later while recovering in the hospital. Her mugshot showed a blank expression, as if the weight of the entire year had finally crushed her. What started as a quiet escape from loneliness had ended in a brutal, irreversible act, one that would soon shake 2 families and an entire community. The trial of Meera Patel began in the summer of 2020, more than a year after the night that ended Jason Miller's life. The courtroom was packed with reporters, curious locals, and 2 families forever changed by one deadly secret. The prosecution was relentless, presenting a case that painted Meera as a calculating woman who lured a young man into a forbidden affair and then killed him when the situation spiraled beyond her control. They showed text messages, photographs, and voice recordings, many of which had been recovered from deleted phone data. Each message revealed a web of deception and desperation. The most damning evidence was a handwritten letter found in Jason's bedroom, never sent, but filled with details about his relationship with Meera. In it, Jason described feeling used, heartbroken, and betrayed. He wrote about how Meera promised they would find a way to be together, only to push him away when the relationship became inconvenient. He also expressed fear that she would expose him or frame him if he refused to leave her alone. The letter, along with testimonies from neighbors who had witnessed his visits and confrontations, made it difficult for the defense to argue the murder was a simple case of self-defense. Meera's lawyers tried to show her as a victim of emotional manipulation, someone who had been seduced during a vulnerable period in her life and then harassed by a young man who couldn't let go. They emphasized the fear she felt for her daughter's safety, pointing to Jason's erratic behavior and threatening messages. But the jury saw something different. They saw a woman who had carefully hidden an affair, manipulated those around her, and then taken violent action when cornered by the consequences. During the sentencing phase, Raj was called to testify. His presence was cold, distant. He described the pain of discovering the betrayal, the horror of that night, and the impact it had on their daughter. Anya, too young to fully understand the tragedy, had been sent to live with relatives during the trial. Raj told the court he intended to return to India permanently after the trial, to rebuild a life far away from the place where everything fell apart. In November 2020, after 5 days of deliberation, the jury delivered its verdict. Guilty of second-degree murder, Meera was sentenced to 18 years in prison, without the possibility of parole for the first 15. She showed little emotion as the sentence was read, sitting quietly, hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed on the floor. Jason's parents moved away within months. Their home remained empty for nearly a year, a quiet reminder of the tragedy that had unfolded. The Patel's house was sold not long after. New families eventually moved into the neighborhood, but those who had lived there during that time never forgot what happened. The story of Meera Patel became a chilling cautionary tale of temptation, secrecy, and the devastating cost of decisions made in the shadows. Behind the calm exterior of a suburban street, a hidden world had unraveled, and its consequences left scars that would never fully heal.